What's up, y'all? It's me again, Catherine, host of At a Total Loss podcast. This is the breakdown of episode 4 with Dominique. I'm having one of those days. Yeah. I don't even know if we can call it one of those days anymore. I think when you're in life after a loss, it's could be any day. There's not like, oh, something bad happened at work or it's hormones and PMSing. It's nothing like that. It's just like it could be any moment. And it's like, so something happened earlier today. I got into a conversation about preventative measures to try to prevent stillbirth. And that always kind of takes me into a place because to this day, 8 months later, I still go over a lot of what happened at like my last doctor's appointment and the days leading up, So it kind of takes me to a place where like I spiral again, you guys, like I regret. Um, there was so much I didn't know, and it feels like I should have known it now because I know so much now, but I didn't know it then. So, and I said something to somebody like it just put me in a funk, and I did everything I could. I'm like, jumped back into work, went for a workout, and someone was like, how's the day going? And I was like, it's not great. Just gonna be honest. And then the question was basically like, did something happen or are you just having a bad day? And I don't really know how to answer that because I think a bad day is like every day. But like I'm doing my best to kind of maneuver through it in a good way, if that makes any sense. It's like you wake up and then you're like, no child, and you go through your day and there's little things that remind you of being pregnant or that they're not here. Like, would I be doing the things that I'm doing today if you were here? No, absolutely not. Bumping into people who have babies, bumping into people who are pregnant, looking online and seeing yet another somebody having a living baby. It's just a lot. And could I crawl into a hole and stay there? Yeah, sure. But no, I mean, I'm going to do my best to continue moving. So, it's almost like I would say that I'm getting used to feeling grief and sadness and used to feeling the longing for my son. However, with that said, as I proceed through each day with this newfound feeling, there are some things that do kind of like, I guess, set me off that require me to pay attention to these feelings, that they become a different layer, a different level. And, recently I said something to somebody like, something triggered me. And they're like, oh, what set you off? Or almost like, did it bring you back there? And it almost as if it was like a setback. And I really want to address that because I've had some new lost moms reach out on social media and say, I was having some really great days, and then now I'm like having a really bad day. So I'm failing, or I'm having a setback. And I'm like, no, that's just what this looks like forever. Honestly. I mean, think about it. Like my son died. My son will not dance with me at his wedding. Like I will not dance with him at his wedding. It will not be a mother-son dance. I'll never see him play college sports or have him write me a silly little card for Mother's Day. Like things like that will happen forever. And those are the things that will bring you into that funk, so to speak. You know what I do? Like this, I do quotes a lot, you guys. So if you're listening to this and not watching me, I am doing air quotes a lot. So cheers, guys. I mean, this is where we're at. And just some days it's too much. And I think I said something to somebody. I said, I'm so tired of being this person. Right? It's so tiring to try to figure out how to like put one foot in front of the other. And like, look, I'm doing my absolute best to like keep going and to keep talking about Brody and honoring him and doing good things and helping people. But some days I take a step back and I'm like, I'm really fucking tired of being a bereaved mother. I'm tired of wishing my son was here. I'm tired of overthinking what happened to him. I'm tired of being triggered all the time. And it's not like I could just snap my fingers and be over it. I'm doing everything I can do that's in my control. And I'm, and if you're a lost parent, it just doesn't stop. So what do we do? What do we do? What do we do with this? We talk to each other. We bitch to each other. We talk shit. We just get through it. And then sooner or later, I think there's more really, really, really good and then really bad moments, and really, really, really good and then really bad moments, instead of super bad all the time with small good ones in between. At least in the beginning of loss, that's how it is. So anyway, I'm having a breakdown and I'm breaking down Domenique's episode. Whatever, here we are. So I really like Domenique's episode because she's a tough love kind of person. And I like that. I like that a lot. And she does not shy away from how she feels. It's not all rosy and it's not all dark. It's how she feels when she feels it. And we're allowed to do that. We really are allowed to do that. I'm doing a lot at the time that I recorded Domenique. It was 7 months out from Brody's death. I've done a lot. I have. And that's because that's who I am as a person. That's it. Like, it's not forced or like I feel the need and I feel called. No, I've run 2 businesses. I've always had an entrepreneur brain. I just do. The way that I cope is I do. If I'm ever feeling like bad or down, I figure out something that I'm good at and I go and I try it. I sound buffer. So what I'm doing right now is not typical, and what Domenique's doing isn't typical, and that's totally fine. I mean, there's some people that have a loud voice and some people have a quiet voice. Everybody is entitled to how they want to honor their baby, how they want to talk about them. I chose a friggin' podcast mainly because I can't shut up about my experiences. When I was first fresh out of loss, I just needed to know that I wasn't alone. And so I guess my thing now is making sure others know that they're not alone. That's my thing. Domenique does a lot with preventative, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. And then later on, I have podcast episode 11. We talk about with Anna, we talk about her preventative advocacy as opposed to bereavement advocacy. So there's like 2 different ways you kind of can go, I think, when you decide that you want to do something. I'm more on the bereavement side. I'm more of the taking care, the therapy, the talking, what happens after loss. And there's some others in the space that are really about the advocacy and the prevention and the awareness. All of it's fine, but it's just, you kind of feel drawn to a certain part of it. So Domenique says something interesting about her being unapologetic about her grief. And you don't have to water yourself down for anybody. That is a very profound statement, because if you go around trying to make other people comfortable or try to alter the way that you are grieving for others, you're going to be jumping around doing all sorts of crazy different methods and styles of grief. Like, how on earth, well, that's one thing. Like, how on earth can you possibly try to people please when you are in the depths of hell? Like, because who knows? Maybe you bump into someone like me and I'm like, I get you. I see you because I'm this messed up too. So, and you can't apologize for how you feel. Now, if you bitch slap somebody or you fight them physically, maybe you should apologize at some point. I think there's lines. Okay, jokes, guys, jokes. But you know what I'm saying? You can't apologize for people's discomfort during your grieving process. You know what I'm saying? Now, also, to me, how I interpret it is, if you decide to grieve loudly, okay, you might hear from some people. So, but if you decide to grieve quietly, you may also hear from people. So don't apologize for which one you decide to do. Some days I'm loud and some days I'm quiet. Y'all, this today was like, I don't want to talk to anybody. So then I was like, I'm just going to talk to you guys. And this is my first, that's like, you just see me take 2 sips. That's all I've had so far. I'm a wine person. Good stuff. So she also says she'll never heal. And I think I want to kind of talk about that because I've been thinking about this a lot and I've been having a lot of conversations. To me, healing is the complete closing of a wound, a total heal. And to me, I don't believe that would ever happen when your child's dead. However, I think there's aspects of the loss where you can heal. So one of the wounds that I've suffered is regret and blame to a point, to a fault, to a crippling fault. And I'm healing from that, thinking that one day maybe I will stop the blame and the regret and be fully healed from the blame that I've put on myself. Will I be fully healed and be okay with his death? No. I don't think, and I've even spoken to the most incredible, spiritually connected, positive thinkers, and they will say the same thing. No, there will never be, you will never be fully healed. Now, if you say I'm on my journey to healing, that's fine. I think healing is fine. That just means you're actively looking for ways of feeling, doing, being better in the space that you're in. And I can't fault you for that. Now, if you were like, I'm fully healed from the death of my son, and then you like never shed a tear, I'd be like, you need to talk about that. Something's up. But to each their own. Again, you guys know, I just kind of like talk about how I've experienced this, but everyone's different. So she talks about also the days after death. And we talk about that a lot in the trenches, the 3 months after, and how you navigate. And recently I talked to Sarah from episode 3. We did an Instagram live. She had a living daughter when her Brody died. I don't have any living children. Brody's my first. And how different that is. I know that on one hand, it was super challenging to have to get up and function and survive and take care of a living child when your baby dies. But at the same time, there's also us who don't have any other living children who like had no reason to get up whatsoever. Yeah. So that was like a really big struggle to just get up. I know a lot of people get a dog. I've had like 6 dogs in my life. I just didn't get a dog this time. Maybe I should have, but I had to come up with other ways to get out of bed, whether it's like my husband took me on walks, I kept working. I like purposely scheduled work calls to get me up. That sort of purposely scheduled, workout classes that charge you if you don't show up. Like I did that on purpose to like get up, to have a reason to get up. I know it's dark when you don't have a baby and you've like planned your whole, like I spent the entire pregnancy planning to have Brody and what that looked like every day, having a baby, and life would be different. And so when they're gone, you got to figure out what that looks like, literally logistically every day, calendar wise, scheduling wise. I was about to like put a pause on my own company because I wanted to be a stay-at-home mother with him. Well, not stay-at-home, but full-time mother with him. Yeah. So here we are. The silence, she talks about the silence a lot. That seems to be a common trend with women who don't have any other children. The silence in the house is just deafening. I mean, right now, my house is pretty quiet. I'm recording, but it's the silence in the hospital room. I was terrified of it. So I asked Michael to put on like a Spotify list, like nature sounds, because if it was like a song, I was like, I don't want a song music that I will run away from for the rest of my life. And to this day, I don't even remember really what was playing, but it was just sounds. It was nature sounds. It was very calming. So he didn't come into silence. He came into, sounded like earth and nature and the wind and the sky and the water. I haven't really thought about it till right now. But in the days after, I always had to have sound. Always. Like, there was always the TV going. There was always a podcast going. Music and I hated each other. We still kind of don't really get along that well. And I'm a big music person, being a former professional dancer. So I have a rough time being in silence sometimes. And it's gotten better. Like, in the very beginning, I would sleep, I kid you not, with the remote control of the TV in my hands. Because if I needed to hear it, I had to turn it up. If I needed to change it, I needed to change it. I couldn't fall asleep without the TV. And to this day, I still can't really. But then, like, if I'd fall asleep in the middle of the night, my husband turned it off or I turned it off, and then I woke up in the middle of the night, I'd have to have the TV on immediately. Like, that went on for a long time. I think that went on until 5 months out. We ended up going on a trip to Egypt, and you can't really, like, the TV was making me crazy. So, like, it wasn't the same as your house, you know? So the silence and running away from the silence in the car, constantly a podcast, always, or in my house while I'm working. Cause I have a home office. Friends was playing. Now Seinfeld is playing all the time. There's also this show. I don't know if you guys have ever seen it. I think it used to be on Hulu. It's called Happy Endings. I don't know. Like, it had like 3 seasons. I feel like I'm the only one that ever watched it, but that show's hilarious. It gets a little annoying at the end, but it's funny. I just always needed the sound of something that I didn't really need to pay attention to. So if you do that, you're not alone. I know that a lot of lost moms do that too. It's getting better 8 months out. I'm able to be in silence for a little bit. I can even drive in silence. That's a little crazy. That's a little psycho, though, isn't it, for anybody to drive in silence? I don't care what you're going through. That's weird. Whatever. So she also says setting out the day dedicated to our kids. And I don't know if I ever really like set out. I do know that I say good morning to Brody as I pass his nursery every morning. I say good night to him. But I don't know if I really have set out to make like rituals of things. I will, make some tea in the morning. Well, because we're trying to conceive him off caffeine. So I will try to do that and maybe sit in his nursery. But I will tell you, I still have a really hard time. Like, as soon as I walk in his nursery, like a lump forms in my throat. And I don't know when that's going to go away. And I don't know if it ever will. I still have such a hard time. Like, he's got these beautiful pictures in his room and his little face. You guys, your girl struggles in that front. I don't know if you guys do too, but I would love to spend more time in there. But to me, I might get some hate for this. His urn is just his ashes. I feel him more outside, nature, the wind, the sun. I don't know why the nursery, I don't know. People are different. People are so different. I just don't know if I necessarily love to be in the nursery. And I don't read to him there. Like, I talk to him whenever. That's just me. So if you feel that way, you're not by yourself on that. I mean, we can do it however we want to do it. Let's be real. Then we talk about gaslighting. Have y'all ever been gaslighted before? So your girl has had some experience with gaslighting. She didn't know it because she was young and dumb. But yes, I was in a relationship for a very long time that had a significant amount of gaslighting. And typically what that means is you feel a certain way. You tell the person you feel a certain way. Then they flip it and say, well, maybe, so like you go to someone and you're like, I feel a certain way because you did this. Then that person says, well, I did this because you did this. So next thing you know, you're like, what? And then you're apologizing. So that's kind of happened with some people that I know. I don't know how, but it was more along the lines of like, I said, or someone said, or we said, I don't know, when I came up from the fog, more like, I'm surprised you weren't here for me. I'm surprised that you did certain things, actions that you did really hurt. And then the response from them was basically like, you have no right to feel that way. Like, no, like you did this, so we did this, and you let us know when you're ready to talk to us. And that's what they said to me. So it's kind of like that happens. And if you are sitting there and you're like, oh my God, my friend did that, or oh my God, my sister did that, or oh my cousin, my mom, my dad, whatever, it happens. And it's unfortunate. And I don't know if it's necessarily the subject matter or the person. So sometimes the subject matter is just so awful that people just need to backtrack and get the hell out of it as soon as they possibly can. But if you go and you look at the behaviors of people that are pulling this, I almost guarantee it's kind of like a thing. Yeah. But maybe you didn't see it before because it, didn't pertain to you or wasn't like a big deal before. But it's a pretty big deal when someone looks at you and says, like, you have no right to feel the way that you feel, and you have no right to grieve the way that you've chosen to grieve. People will say that. And if you are in the trenches and you're just now experiencing that, I'm sorry, but it's not uncommon. Now, here's my advice. If you are going through a situation with a friend or a family member where it's not necessarily gaslighting, but they're saying things like, I don't know, I'm on the fence with this because I've had gaslighters and I've had people that just stop talking to me. And then I have like really close friends. I don't have anybody kind of in the middle being like, you're so selfish because you don't want to talk to me about my baby. No one's really saying that. People are like hiding their children from me because they're like, are you sure you can handle this? If someone is basically saying to you that you're selfish because you can't show them attention and joy because your child is dead, I would do my best to maybe try to understand where they're coming from, decide how I feel about the situation, say what I'm capable of providing for them. Also, you got to protect yourself. But always remember that I believe this is going to be a seasonal event. I don't feel like we will always be like this forever. So I chose not to burn bridges and not to do anything detrimental in any friendships until this time has passed. Because, and I say this time has passed, if you've had lifelong friends that have been around for decades, and now we're going through the depths of hell, nobody's equipped to handle that. Yeah, we could Google. Yeah, we can get counselors. Yeah, we could do that. But everyone's got emotions over this. Now, I'm not saying if they're being a complete jerk, name calling, saying mean things, talking badly about you, talking shit, blah, blah, that's another thing. But if people are just not equipped with how to handle this, I would do my best to try to show mercy and grace like I'm asking for to get through this season of time. Because if we are going to be friends 10 to 15 years from now, and I'm still grieving my child, but it's not as heavy as it is right now, I would hope to still remain in good friendships if they're still good and I thrive in them. Hope that makes sense. Because there are certain relationships that you will find you will not thrive in them anymore, and your time with them is done, unfortunately. But there are some that are going to stick around and they're going to do their best, and you just have to try really hard not to throw those away because you are miserable right now. So something as simple as like, this is not the time for me to be there for you, but I hope to be in the future, and just know I am here if you really need me. Things like that, instead of like, fuck off, I don't want anything to do with you. Like, we can't, be careful with that. That's just my opinion. I mean, that's what I've decided to do. And it's so far worked because I remember soon after loss, I got some news about a best friend, and I was like livid and devastated. And I let a few weeks go by before I actually vocalized anything, and then I calmed down, and I basically was like, this is nobody's fault. This wasn't intentional. And I came to my senses. And then I'm happy that happened because hopefully we could still have a friendship in the future. But it's got to align. Like if someone's having a baby right now and it's your best friend and you are devastated by the loss of yours, it's not time for you to be friends right now. And that's okay. That's so okay. As long as you guys are on the same page. That's just where I'm at with it. There's a difference between people gaslighting you, which is like really bad. And then there's a difference between that and someone saying, I understand if you can't be my friend right now. And then there's another one that says, like, I don't understand why you're acting this way. Those are like three things. And we have to address those accordingly and be able to diagnose that. That's a whole thing. I think I talk about Megan's episode. You have to listen to Megan's episode. She talks about how she's chose to like make positive decisions and positive choices every single time she felt grief. And I think that kind of has to do with, friendships and relationships too. We have to be really careful with that. But you will have some nasty people, unfortunately. And the thing is that somebody may do something that hurts you. You are allowed to say, hey, politely, like to correct you. I do have a son. He's in heaven. He existed. I am a mother. And then if they still refuse to be like, oh, you don't have a son, that person never existed, and you're not a mom because you don't have a living baby. If they still refuse after you've said something, then you have a decision to make. Yeah, that's it. We can do a whole thing on this. But I'd love to hear what you guys have been going through and how you've handled it. You can write in the captions, or the comments. Again, this is my journey, my experience, my significant amount of work and therapy. So take it for what you want, but know you're not alone if you're dealing with this. New relationships versus old ones. If you are like feeling enthused when you go see your lost mom friends, but like drained when you see your old friends, normal. Because I don't care if you're talking about the weather. It's different coming from somebody who has experienced the level of trauma that you have. The level of trauma. I even find myself connecting with other grievers who have lost different family members and not their babies. It's like a level that you can't explain to other people. Also, I don't know about you, but I had like a really big like envy problem, and not about them having kids. Like I don't hate their children. I don't hate them for having kids. It's more of an envy of that they don't know what this feels like and they don't have to carry this. It's twisted. And I never really lashed out, but I just didn't deal. I didn't respond. I found that a lot of the things that people who have not lost, like petty shit, and I'm just like, I don't have the capacity for it right now. Maybe in the future, but not right now. So that's a thing. You could still have your old friends 100%. And I think Liz talks about in episode 1, if you didn't hear it, her friends took her on a trip. And then Bliss, she's talking about her friends took her on, was it Bliss? No, it wasn't Bliss. It was somebody else. But their friends took them on a girls' weekend and shit like that. I gravitated, first of all, my best friends were kind of like, we're crickets. But again, nobody knew what to do. We're fine now. And then I gravitated towards lost moms. That's just me. That's what I wanted to do. And even to this day, when I talk to them, it's like so different. So different. And that's normal. That's why we have this community. So I have a friggin' podcast, because it's different hearing it from us. It's different talking to one of us. And that's okay. And you can always still have your old friends, 100%. You could probably even make new ones who know this new version of you. You got to explain what happened. But you can have both. It just brings a different part of you out. That's it. But I don't know about you. If nobody makes me feel like I'm thriving or energized or like I'm doing great things, I don't want to be around them anyway. So regardless if they're new, old, lost, not, good vibes only. Next year's our year. So she talks about being so private on social media, and not anymore. You guys, I'm talking, I see that. I feel that. I was so private. And the next thing I know, I'm like, I can't keep my mouth shut and I'm throwing it all out there. What is it? Loss makes you just say, who cares? Right? Who cares? Who cares anymore? You know? Because just when you think nobody knows what you're saying, or they're just like, I don't know, someone comes at you and says, oh my God, me too. Me too. I can't believe you're saying this. I feel the same way. And so I think my biggest fear was that people would like enjoy this happening to me. I'm a chick who really has not had that many hardships. I mean, a toxic relationship and a sold business. Yeah. But nothing to this level. And that's on them. And I never understood that phrase until now. So I said, I'm afraid if I put this out there, people are really going to enjoy watching me suffer. Guess who's the twisted one in that situation? Them. You know what I'm saying? Like, I can't worry about somebody responding to the death of my baby with glee. That person, get the what? I can't worry about that person. That person's horrible. You can't either. I mean, I'll be completely honest. I am extremely private in my work industry. I operate as my maiden name on LinkedIn with thousands of followers in my industry. And those people don't know what's going on with me, but on Instagram, I'm not private about it. And if people can migrate over from LinkedIn, they'll see my story. To be continued. I'm going to have a conversation about that soon with a grief professional because it's weird. I know, but it works for me. But I've been open about this. I'm not really sure I've lied about anything really. I mean, I respect my husband and I respect our privacy with certain things. So maybe I haven't divulged really into our next steps with our future, but that'll come. Right now I'm in this conversation about Brody's death and what happened and how we all can get through this together. Dark humor is a thing, and I can't. When I first got in this space, I saw some people on social media say it like referred to as like a dead baby, and I was like, we're doing this? And then there were some jokes, and I was like, ha ha ha. And I think not so much joking about the death is dark humor. I think the humor is joking about the dark parts of it, the grief, the breakdowns, the meltdowns, the trauma, the brain fog, the postpartum that sucks. Like joking about that stuff is dark because this is a dark subject matter. I have a hard time joking about Birdie's death. I really don't know if I'll ever be able to do that, but hey, to each their own. But I am able to laugh in the darkest times. So maybe that's also dark humor. And I gravitate towards people who like to laugh. And they say things like, I don't know, someone's office is giving away tickets to something and they're like, I have a dead baby. I get them, and it's like, that's amazing. But only lost people can joke. Honestly, if anybody looked at me and said, you have a dead baby, you get him, I would be like, wow, somebody call the cops. Yeah. So only we could joke towards each other. And if you have a sense of humor about this, there's nothing wrong with you. Like if we don't laugh, we'll cry hysterically. And there's tons of us who think this shit's funny. Sometimes it's comical, like how bad things are. I mean, the other day I was going through it and I go to this bar and I'm going to go have some drinks and turn around and my waitress is like 40 months pregnant. I didn't see it coming. It was crazy. And it happens. Ha ha ha. Life's hilarious. I know I'm so much more open to grief. We talk about that. Society and flaws, like society hasn't really been, I think, until recently. I mean, I don't know if you remember, like Instagram was like the perfect zone. Everybody always just put up the beautiful pictures. And now I think it's such an open space for people to talk about flaws and hurt and trauma and grief awareness. And so I think we're in a good space right now where we can talk about this and people are listening. And to be quite honest, the people who talk about their grief and their trauma are so much more endearing than those who pretend like they don't have any. Am I right? Think about it. I mean, think about people that you follow, the people you look up to. I follow certain people. Most of them had trauma. And now they're motivational and thought thinkers or whatever. So I feel like if someone came out that is like super big out there and was like, I had a stillbirth, we would all fall out and love them even more. So it's endearing, I think, to a certain point. And I think society is getting more open to having these conversations about just not being perfect anymore. Or not. We have dead children. Talk about not perfect. Life is not perfect, and it never will be. So here we go. Woo. She talks about her Dear Abby experience. And you know how I guess the quote was, you need to get over it. I think I completely understand what she was saying. Completely understand what she was saying. And yes, I don't feel like anybody should be told they need to get over it, because not one point in the history of mankind has anybody ever gotten over it because someone told them to. It's like kind of the reverse effect, right? It's like someone tells you to calm down. You're like the complete opposite. Exactly it. Someone's like, you need to get over it. I'd be like, opposite effect is about to happen. I'm not even over it. I'm like way above it. So, but I also think there is a level of professionals who are going to tell you that you need to make attempts to dig yourself out of the hole. That makes sense. So like you're never going to get over the death of your child, ever, never. Staying in that space and wallowing and keep repeating and repeating and repeating what happened and never making any moves to move forward could be detrimental to health. So I've heard. You need to try to find that, pick up the trauma, pick up the grief, pick up the sadness, and carry it with you. You know, there was a time that I was like obsessed with what happened to Brody. Oh, phone's going off. I was obsessed with what happened to Brody over and over and over and over and over again. And I had to stop. I'm not over it, but I've moved forward from it. That makes sense. Because I can't live there. I cannot live there. It is so detrimental to my health. That's just me. So I think in some senses, maybe, I mean, I'm being devil's advocate here. I don't know what Dear Abby meant. You never want to tell someone to get over it. That's insane. Insane. I feel like, though, the longer we get from Brody's death, that people will think I am over it and that I'm fine. And that it's shocking when they realize I'm having a really bad time. I'm having a hard time. So, and you don't want to like go around like reminding people, but it's okay to say, I'm really having a hard time right now. This is hard. Like the holidays, this grief season coming up, we're going to have a hard time. This is shot in September, by the way. But yeah, you know, I say this all the time. We have no control over what happens to us in this life. The only thing we can control is how we respond to what happens to us. So you have the right, the choice to grieve, to mourn, however you need to get through this, to survive. You can then choose if you want to move forward and what that looks like. If you don't ever want to talk about your baby again and you want to move forward from it, you want to move on from it, hey, that's up to you. Completely up to you. But nobody has any right to tell you that's wrong. That's just what we're saying here. Now, if you are drinking bottles of vodka in a bathtub every single day in your robe and you haven't eaten and you haven't seen the light of day in 4 months, yeah, we might need an intervention. Somebody may need to be like, coming in, you good? I'm exaggerating, but you know what I'm saying? I just want people to know that you are going to feel like rushed to get better from society and from people, but you can't do that. You have to go at your own pace. It's 100% a journey, and it's not linear. It's not like, oh, if you get to month 3, you're good. 6, you're great. 12, you're over it. No, because when you hit like me, 8 months, you know, I have bad days too. And I go all the way back. Like I had a spiral this morning over like what happened to him. Does it mean I'm off track? No, this is part of this, part of it. And we talk about this in Mariah's episode. If you are around people who disagree with how you feel or how you grieve, those may not be your people right now. Those may not be your people right now, whether they've been here for years. And I think I talked about this a little bit before. You have to fulfill yourself and surround yourself with people who are going to pour themselves into your grieving process and your healing process. If someone's hindering that, they're not your people right now. Maybe in the future, but not right now. So be careful of who you surround yourselves with. And if you come to that realization, that's okay. Totally fine. Totally fine. And I think your responses to people will evolve. In the very beginning, you're going to lash out. You're going to be very mad. And from what my counselor says, that is a deflection off of what's really making you mad and upset. And you're just focusing all of your emotions onto people and their actions. It happened to me for a little bit. There was a minute where I was like, not crying. I was like, oh, Brody, that's so sad, but I'm fine. And my counselor was like, you okay? But I was super pissed about like a friend who did something. She was like, I see what's going on here. So, that's just kind of what happens. So now though, when people act a fool is what I say, when they do or say something that's just completely insensitive, I don't get mad. I just kind of like roll my eyes. I'm like, they don't know what to say. And then I just choose to engage or not engage. It'll evolve. Now, if somebody even remotely refers to Brody as non-existent, that response will probably never change. My delivery may change. Like, I'm not going to scream and yell anymore. I think it's more of like, hey, we're going to talk about what you just said and how you can't say that again. Yeah. Thanks, pumpkin. And also, this is huge. Pick and choose who you respond to, because if you don't, you will be responding to everybody and it's so draining and you do not have the capacity for that. Like, I literally think I posted this on my Instagram. You do not have to respond to everybody. Not everybody deserves a response. Someone's being a total a-hole. You don't have to respond to them. So pick and choose who you would like to address this with. Yeah, a lot of people don't get it. A lot of people don't get it, and they never will. It's tough, you guys. And that's why we're here. So comment questions. I mean, there's other people that are going to be commenting and they can see and maybe partake in the conversation of, how do I do this? How do I do this? We go on to talk about prevention of preventable stillbirths. I think 25% of all stillbirths are preventable, meaning maybe with increased monitoring, fetal movement, kick counts, placenta measuring, third trimester ultrasounds, things like that, maybe even blood work to see if you have a clotting disorder. We talk about clotting disorders in episode 2. It's preventable is like a really important word here. So small placenta is about 30% of stillbirths. And we talk about small placenta coming up with Amanda and Dr. Kleiman. We're going to go in on what happens. And we also talk about small placenta in this one with Domenique as well. Your baby's placenta should be somewhere in the 10th percentile or bigger or larger, I guess. Mine, Brody's was second. And my OB did not read the placenta pathology correctly. She said there was nothing wrong. And then I took it to a maternal fetal medicine and she said, his is small, 2nd percentile. Then I took it to Dr. Harry Kleiman, who is a specialist in this. And he proceeded to let me know that, yes, Brody had a small placenta. His placenta pathology showed that it was in the 2nd percentile, but that's not what killed him. He thinks there was a cord compression that killed him. Where my heart gets shattered in 1,000 pieces is that I was told that they would try to induce at 38 weeks because my blood pressure kept going up. Now I found out that the blood pressure was going up because of the small placenta that we did not know about. Also, around my 10-week appointment, they changed Brody's due date from February 2nd to February 10th. Now, it doesn't really matter that much until you get into the final weeks where they're growing, what, half a pound a week. And when you're not allowed to induce in the state of Georgia or whatever until 38 weeks, like that matters. So if that was actually the case and I lost him at 36 and a half, he technically was 38 and I could have been induced and gotten him out before he died. So that was information that I did not know until I spoke to Dr. Harvey Kleiman. The information that I had before Kleiman was overwhelming. I had found out that I had a blood clot disorder. I was kicking myself about food that I ate and how I laid and my workouts and like really just going crazy about like that I caused his death. So finding out that it was an unpreventable I say unpreventable because he could have been out of me had this gone better. And if I had said something at the doctor's appointment, like he seems to be slowing down, but I didn't know he was slowing down. Everybody said to me, even that app, and I talked about this in another breakdown. The app was like, babies run out of space. You're going to feel rolls and not punches anymore. And that's exactly what I was feeling. And everyone around me, all of my best friends, everybody said, you're not going to feel super heavy kicks and punches. So finding out that it wasn't my fault, physically my fault, was helpful. Finding out that it was preventable was not. That I should have had a different doctor, that I should have seen a specialist. I was a pretty big nutcase though. I was very hyper cautious and I always demanded answers and things like that. And I guess I just didn't push hard enough for him. But Harvey Kleiman, what happened was, I emailed and him and his assistant, and they gave me like a whole thing to fill out. And I got the placenta pathology from my hospital, FedExed, overnighted, which was paid for somehow, to the Yale clinic or whatever that Dr. Kleiman works out of. And he did the placenta pathology and sent it to me within like days. And he did a summary in layman's terms, which was helpful. But because if you look at it, there's all these images and things like that. And I just didn't know what any of that was. Then you have the option to do a Zoom call with him. And we did, because I still had so many questions. We did a 2-hour Zoom call. It was a 3-month wait, but somebody canceled. We only ended up waiting like 4 or 5 weeks. So he went through my whole entire background, everything, my family history of pregnancies and fertility. And he told me some things that were challenging to accept. So if you do this, know that you may hear some things you don't like. Also, you may hear some things that you don't really agree with. Like he said some things that I was like, I don't know if that really happened. Trust your body, trust your intuition, and trust your thoughts and how you feel. But it was helpful to know what happened to him. And I talk about this with Anna in episode 11, just not only to know what happened to him, but to know what happens for future pregnancies. Because if I continued on not knowing what killed him, I would be forever fearful that it's something that me and my husband carry, or that my husband and I carry, and then wouldn't want to know if it's going to be passed to the next baby. Also, the amount of conversations I'm having the knowledge of what happened has been helpful to teach others and to make them aware of what's going on with them. So if you want that information, he's not on Instagram, but I can link it in the bottom of this so that y'all can click around and see if you want to send over the info. And if you talk to Dr. Kleiman, I'd love to hear what he said. Put it in the comments. If you spoke with him and what he said about the placenta pathology of your child and how it helped you. And yeah, I'm curious. I mean, even when you get all the answers, you still have more questions. So just prepare yourself for never having 100%. Because what they do is they say things that are associated with the death. They won't say really cause a death unless it's blatantly obvious. But it definitely was helpful. Typically, I think in the hospital, they told me that typically parents don't get answers. And you really have to find them. You have to dig, because there's not one person that's going to like actively try to help you find the answers, which is so wild. You have one job as an OB, get the baby here, and you don't. Don't you want to know? I could go on and on and on about that. And you guys make the assumptions and the conclusions that you want to make. I can't with that. The American College of Obstetrics and Gynecology, ACOG, really needs to start to really hone in on what the heck is going on and change their criteria and change some things. So they really need to. And I think the Shine for Autumn bill is a big deal. It's trying to get prenatal care, standard prenatal care, not specialty care, to include education of the healthcare, the medical professionals that are involved, the education for us on counting the kicks and placenta, estimated placenta volume, which also should be a measurement in standard prenatal care, as well as a third trimester ultrasound, just blood work that needs to be done. That all needs to be standardized, because the numbers of stillbirths are going up, and we need to actively try to do something. So I'll leave information in the bottom. You should probably see it in the description or in the comments, where you can get involved if you want to be with Domenique and become part of a push for empowered pregnancy, or even still counts or count the kicks, all that stuff. And then Measure the Placenta is also one that's doing some really big and cool things. There's a rainbow clinic that just went up in New York, Dr. Stone, and we're really hoping that, this is just precision and very intense care for those who have had a loss, which is why don't we have that prenatal care? And then why don't we have that for every doctor that takes care of somebody after a loss? So no, we need rainbow clinics now. So they're doing a bunch of fundraising right now. That is going to be, it's fantastic the way that they're going to do it. They're going to have more intense testing, and they're going to help you mentally and emotionally at the same time they are physically. So hoping to get those. I think that there was even it was even highlighted, I believe, on, mainstream media recently about that. I'm going to try to find that, and I can link that too. Where's my notes? Anyway, we're getting louder. It's making national news. Celebrities are coming out. I really think that we're, the more we talk about this, the more that it's going to become part of the conversation, and it really needs to change. It really needs to happen. Yeah. So, Domenique had some really great things. She's really holds a safe space and empowers people to really live their truth and really live how they want to grieve and how they want to honor their child. And that's literally all that's the only control we have. And that's the only choice that we have. We did not choose this life. We did not choose for our babies to die. We did not choose to be bereaved or grieve or live a life of sadness, but we have a choice on how we're going to proceed following through after the loss, moving forward. That's really the only choice that we have. So you do you, however you need to do it. You have a posse of us who have your back. And again, there's one of two ways you could go if you feel like you want to get involved. No pressure. You don't really have to at all. It doesn't make you a bad mother if you don't be super loud or start a podcast or start a book or a blog or march on at Congress or the Senate. You can do whatever you want to do to honor your baby and remember them, and whatever you want to do to help others is up to you. But if you do want to get involved, there's kind of you can go the bereavement route and the grief and the help from bereavement parents and the aftermath, or you could go the advocacy and the prevention route, which, there's plenty of resources and ways to do that. But Domenique is in the prevention and advocacy route. And I'm going to link everything for you to check out the things that she talked about there and resources, and feel free to comment, keep it clean, keep it nice. This is a safe space. Your thoughts on some of these things. I'd love to hear from you guys. We're all in this together. I'm so sorry you're here, but I'm happy that we've connected, and your babies are beautiful. And I'm so sad that we've met this way, but I hope this helps. And I'd love to hear from you. So find me on Instagram at the Catherine Lazar. And I'm going to, again, tag all that stuff underneath so that you guys can find me in other places. But You guys take care of yourselves. I'm here for you. You're not alone.